Cubs are heading into the offseason, and they're looking to upgrade this roster. And there's a lot of decisions to be made. What's going to happen with opt-outs or opt-ins, right? Cody Bellinger, is he back? How about Drew Smyly? We're going to talk about that. Cubs have a mutual option on him, so they can decide whether they want to keep the left-handed reliever or set him free. And I think this is going to be an easy decision. Also, 4 big-time free agents. A lot of money, but also game changers. Where do they fit with the Cubs? We're going to talk about those guys, including the polar bear. Could he be coming to Chicago? Rumored a couple years ago, but are the Cubs really considering him? I want to talk about that and more right here on the Cubs Baseball Channel. Thanks for hanging, guys, and let's get the show started. Great to talk to you guys. Mick Gillispie here on the Cubs Baseball Channel, and it is always wonderful to talk Cubs baseball. It's been slow. We know that. It's been slow. It was fun hanging with Naren. He's going to come back on and do more stuff with us as well. And we're going to get things cranked up as soon as this World Series is over and get back into a regular schedule. I know you guys are wanting that, and I want that too. But right now, it's one of those times where you're like watching this World Series. We wanted this World Series. We got it. Now we got the Dodgers and Yankees and say, well, these are the 2 hated teams, right? I just like the brands. The only World Series that would be better to me would be Cubs Red Sox. Can you imagine that? Be like the same but different, right? The other 2 big brands in baseball going head to head. So we'll see if we ever get that. But Dodgers and Yankees are putting on a pretty good show, and they have a lot of star power. And it's changed my opinion a little bit on winning World Series and building franchises. And I feel like with the Cubs, and I've said this before, that they have a good roster, but they don't have a great roster, and they don't have elite players. And if Cody Bellinger is your superstar, he's just not the guy that's leading you into the postseason. I mean, last year, Cubs fell apart at the end. This year, Cubs kind of got hot at the end, but it was too late. It was all eyewash, as they used to say in the game. Just, hey, we got that same 83-79 record, and we got the same result. We're outside of the playoffs looking in, right? So what are the Cubs going to do this offseason? And I think part of it is dealing with the options. And when you're a team, you want to have the option of being able to decide who's on your roster and who's gone. Cody Bellinger gets to decide whether he wants to stay. The Cubs don't have that option. He does. So if he wants to take the money, he can. And if he thinks he can get more, he's going to leave. And if he leaves, I think it would benefit the Cubs. And if he stays, I think that benefits the Cubs as well. We talked about that on another show. But what about Drew Smyly? Left-handed pitcher this year for the Cubs. Stats don't look terrible. 50 appearances, 4-8 record, and a 3.84 ERA. 3 blown saves, 10 holds. The Cubs, remember at the end of the season, the Cubs put him out there, and if somebody wanted him, they could have got him, but nobody wanted him. And maybe part of that is that they don't feel like he's a difference maker. You would have said, hey, if this guy can come in and we can add him to our roster off of waivers, maybe he's a difference maker and we want him. That's not what happened. Everybody's like, you know what? $10 million, for next year. And they just watched. That tells me that the Cubs are going to not opt for him to come back. I think he's long gone. And I look at this, like this pitching side of the Cubs roster, and I say there's a lot of moves that you can make there. The position player side, there's a log jam. You signed a lot of these guys to long-term contracts. Then you got all these guys in AAA that what are you going to do with? That's the question that it's going to be really interesting to see how they answer it and how aggressive they are. If Jed Hoyer's back for his final year, it's do or die for him. And I'm not sure that that's going to happen. I mean, I feel like in any leadership role, if you got a guy on a 1-year deal, you could let that guy ruin your whole organization, or maybe you micromanage a little bit more than you normally would, right? But sometimes you do your best work. Look at Cody Bellinger. I mean, he had the 1-year deal, had one of the best seasons he's ever had, the second best season outside of his MVP year, and then got the security and was okay this year, but didn't have that same season that he had the year before. And we'll find out what happens there. So if he opts out, it's about $30 million. You know that you're getting 16 and change back from Kyle Hendricks not returning, and I don't think he'll be back. And then what about this guy? $10 million. So, would you pay the $10 million? I think the answer is no. I think that this is money that could go towards adding maybe one of the top free agents or bolstering the bullpen. And I've asked people about bullpen pitchers. And the thing that I'm going to say people like, some of the top executives in baseball that I've talked to is that you have a lot more flexibility because relievers aren't as pricey as starters, right? So $10 million might get you somebody pretty good, or it could add to somebody pretty good. Now, would the Cubs be interested in going out and trading for Josh Hader? I don't know. Possibly. But, anytime you sign a reliever and you're paying him that kind of money, or you trade for a guy and maybe the Astros won out of that deal, and that's been, that's speculated on. His old manager, Craig Counsell, I'm sure Craig wants to get some of those Brewers because not just for what they can do on the field, he's got to change the culture. Yeah, it's crazy, right? 2016, can you imagine us saying, man, we got to change the Cubs culture? We've gotten back to being the lovable losers again. And Milwaukee's the team that just figures out a way to win year after year. So I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't go out and try to add some guys who could not only help the team win, but bring that culture that he helped develop in Milwaukee. Now that leads me to this, right? Who are the top free agents that could possibly come to the Cubs? And the list, there's a lot of free agents, but the list of people that you look at and go, okay, who makes a difference? And the first name that pops up to me is Pete Alonso, right? What about Pete Alonso, the polar bear, my favorite home run derby contestant, because he takes it so seriously. I love him. He reminds me of the softball player who shows up in full uniform. And, when I'm talking about, everybody else is just kind of wearing this kind of stuff. And then the guy comes out, he's got the full uniform, the socks, the gloves, and all that stuff. He takes that home run derby seriously. And I would be surprised that the Mets don't re-sign him, just because I'm sure that in New York, after the run that the Mets made this year, they're going to want to seriously think about the team that they have and how those guys, if they stick together, might be able to actually win a World Series instead of losing, in the championship round. Or they may say, you know what, the money's not going to be, we're not paying this guy. I don't know. Would he be a good fit for the Cubs? Well, the problem that I have with this one is you're going to have to pay this guy a ton of money. He's out for a long-term contract. He's earned it. I mean, he's put up the money. He's put up the stats, 34 home runs, 88 RBIs. He's a big-time power threat. And he's legitimately one of the best sluggers in the game. You put him at first base, boom, let him go. The problem is that the Cubs have Michael Busch at first base, and he actually did a pretty good job this year, and he's a lot more affordable. So what would you do with Michael Busch? That's a question that they have to decide. To me, I feel like Michael Busch is on the verge of cranking it up. I mean, I could really feel the change in him as a player during the course of the season. And defensively got better. Is he one of the best in baseball? No, but I mean, he was serviceable. He was getting better as the year went on, and he was a consistent hitter. And it feels like, and this goes also with Pete Crow Armstrong, these rookie hitters, it's a big jump from AAA to the big leagues right now. And those guys just have to take their whoopings at the big league level and their lumps and figure it out. And why would you want to get rid of a guy who you got under contract, you made a trade for, you got some of your best, you gave away some great prospects to get him, you got something back in return, and now all of a sudden you're going to get rid of this guy for a free agent? Could you put Pete Alonso as the DH? Yeah, it's possible. Cody Bellinger comes back. I don't even think that Pete Alonso is even in the conversation. Cubs need a splash, though, and they need somebody that can come in and drive in runs, and they need a real presence in the lineup. And maybe the other thing about Alonso is the guy's got, he's got a little bit of a chip on his shoulder, and I think the Cubs need that. It's like he's one of those guys that's out there trying to earn respect every day. And so this team definitely could use somebody who's motivated to win. And we'll see what happens. But I think he's unrealistic. Now, the second guy is very similar in Vladimir Guerrero Jr. I was a huge fan of Vladimir Guerrero Sr., his dad, and Vlad Jr. is a really good player with Toronto, but the Blue Jays haven't won anything with him, and it feels like they're kind of like, you know what, what are we going to do with this guy? Now, he played, pretty much every game this last season. I mean, he only missed a handful of games, and he hit 30 home runs, and he had 103 runs batted in, right? I would take him in a second. And I like Michael Busch a lot, but unlike Alonso, who's, a strikeout guy with a low batting average, Guerrero, man, this guy's pretty good. And he gets a lot of hits, and I could see him absolutely lighting up in Chicago. He just seems like the type of guy that when he gets to the real big stage, and that's not Toronto for baseball, maybe if he played for the Maple Leafs, he'd have that stage in Toronto. But playing for the Blue Jays, playing for the Cubs, okay, now you're somewhere. And it'd be interesting to see kind of how he would fit. Now, could you use him at DH? Yeah. Could you have him and Michael Busch? I think you could find a way to do that. But it's kind of the same thing with me with Guerrero. If you put him at first base, then all of a sudden Busch is playing somewhere else, which he did a lot in the Dodgers organization. It wasn't until this year that the Cubs put him at first. I wouldn't get rid of him for Pete Alonso, but you know what? Vlad Jr., it's a pretty marquee name, and I would love to see him in the middle of the Cubs lineup. That's just me. Now, the second guy's on the other side, and we've talked about him before, free agent wise. And this is the type of guy that kind of reminds me of a John Lester type free agent. And I'm talking about Corbin Burns. You know him from his days in Milwaukee. Last year, he helped the Baltimore Orioles. He was the only, the rest of the starting rotation for Baltimore ended up getting hurt, but not him. The former Cy Young Award winner would just fit in so well with Justin Steele and Shota Imanaga and Jameson Taillon, who you still got signed for a couple of years. 32 starts. He had a 15-9 record for the Orioles in that tough division with the Yankees and the Blue Jays and the Red Sox. And he had an earned run average under 3, right? And he threw almost 200 innings. So I think that for the Cubs, you're trying to make a splash, and your manager is the guy that managed him coming up. This guy's right in the prime of his career. You need a starter at the top of the rotation. We talked about this before. It would really surprise me if the Cubs don't go all in on trying to get Corbin Burns for the rotation. And pitching still wins. Starting pitching still matters. I don't care what the analytics people tell you. So that's one where I look at it and I go, hey, this would be a great fit for the Cubs. But it's going to cost a lot of money. We talked about that. But at some point, you've got to add star players to this roster, and this would be one that I put right up at the top of the list. And then the other guy is Juan Soto. I just can't see the Cubs paying Juan Soto, although because the Yankees are going to pay him, right? He's only 26. The guy had almost 109 runs batted in, 41 bombs last year, and he hit 288. And he played just like Vlad Jr. He played like every game for the Yankees. He is a star player, and he is a difference maker in the lineup. And I'm sure that the Yankees, they made a big trade to get him. They're going to be willing to pay a lot of money. Are the Cubs going to be able to get in there in this mix? Are they willing to pay that kind of money? And they should be. I mean, on one side of town, we got the White Sox talking about going to Nashville. If I'm the Cubs, I'm pushing them right on down the river to the Music City by going out and building a roster and just winning, because the White Sox are such a mess right now. And if you ever get them out of town, think about the amount of money that you would have being in a major city with just one team. Yeah, I mean, think about that. So it could be an investment to go out there. Maybe you sign Corbin Burns. Maybe you go all Dodgers like they did last year and pay the $1 billion, and you get that roster up and you start winning, and you don't come up 83-79. You get into the playoffs, you win, and it takes these guys at it with the team that you have to get there. So those are some free agents to keep an eye on. Am I Do I think that this is something that could definitely happen? No, but it would be consideration to me, because if I was the Cubs, I'd have my sights on taking the city over for good, right? Push the White Sox right into Nashville by just having such a great team. And Wrigley's better than their ballpark. And the North Side is certainly a draw, not just in the city, but nationally. And then on top of that, the Cubs are they're like right here. You know what I mean? Like, the team that they have right now isn't capable of winning a World Series. But you add some of these guys to the mix. You get the Vlad Jr., you get Juan Soto, you get Corbin Burns, or you get maybe Vlad and Corbin. Boom. Now all of a sudden you got that star power that you need. You guys tell me what you think right here on the Cubs Baseball channel. Again, thank you so much for hanging. Like and subscribe, be a part of what we're doing. And as soon as this World Series is over, we'll kind of be full time, because it's going to be fast and furious what's going on in baseball and with the Cubs. So until then, guys, thanks for hanging and go.